Hey, what's up? This is JBAT, and today I will be doing a review for Batman issue 500, Nightfall 19, and this is from October 1993, and it details the events that happened after Batman got his back broken by Bane. And in this book, there's the Batman is currently played by Jean Paul. You know, he was formerly Azrael, and he still has the help of Tim Drake as Robin too along the way. So this is J-Bat, and this is Batman 500. Hey, what's up? This is J-Bat, and today I'll be doing a review of a comic book issue, and it is Batman issue 500, as you can see right here. Now I remember getting this book back in the early 90s, in 1993 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, October 1993. Now that's kind of when I was at the peak of reading comic books, and this was so hot at the time, because they just had like the death of Superman, where Superman was killed by Doomsday. So they also had like a major story turning point for Batman, where he had his back broken by Bane, So yeah, this is gonna be just like a review for this, and this was Batman issue 500, and it was Nightfall 19. It was part of the Nightfall series, which was number 19. Now at that point in the Batman timeline, especially in the Nightfall series, Bruce Wayne was no longer Batman because his back was broken by Bane, you know what I'm saying? So he's actually like chilling somewhere with Alfred. He's not even in Gotham City no more, and plus he's like wheelchair bound, so he's virtually you know what I'm saying, helpless at the point, you know what I'm saying, at that point. So there's a new Batman, and he's played by Jean Paul. I think his last name was Valley, and he was formerly Azrael. So this guy named Jean Paul, he is the current Batman, but you still have Robin along the way, who was Tim Drake at the time, because the original Robin, which was Dick Grayson, he became Nightwing, and then the second Robin, who was Jason Todd, he died, you know what I'm saying. So the third Robin was Tim Drake, so he's the current Robin. He was the current Robin at this time, in the Batman timeline or whatever, when this was going on in the Nightfall saga, basically. So yeah, now the comic book issue, it opens with Batman, who is Jean Paul. Now he's battling Bane with these new gauntlets he has made for his hands, and they're cool too because they shoot like batarangs. I remember at the time I thought it was cool because he could shoot like a whole bunch of batarangs, like projectiles at his gauntlets, So I always thought that was cool at the time, Then after this moment, it gets kind of gruesome, because he shoots batarangs into Bane, and Bane pulls one out, and he's like bleeds and stuff, so it's very bloody, Then after that, jumps to a scene with Tim Drake as Robin, and he has an argument with Jean Paul, the current Batman, in the Batcave. I believe they're in the Batcave. Yeah, I think they're in the Batcave. And Jean is doing like one-arm pull-ups as he's having an argument with Robin, like Tim Drake or whatever. He's doing like one-arm pull-ups, but at the same time he's also secretly creating a new bat suit for himself so he can take out Bane in the end, So eventually, other characters show up in this, like Harvey Bullock. He's also in this, and I was more familiar with him from the Batman animated series, but he plays like a major role in this story too, because there's scenes with him and Commissioner Gordon, and they're overlooking a battle between Batman, Jean Paul, and Bane, towards the end of the story. Then you also have Nightwing. He shows up in the tale too, you know what I'm saying. He shows up and has like a conversation with Tim Drake, and he didn't know that Bruce Wayne was in a wheelchair at the time. He didn't really know about that. So Tim actually reveals that to him, that Bruce Wayne is now in a wheelchair. He's wheelchair bound, and he's still recovering from his injuries, but he is with Alfred. And there's also a scene with Bruce and Alfred like in another country. I forgot exactly where it was, and Bruce Wayne really is in a wheelchair, you know what I'm saying? And he's still recovering from being broken by Bane, And also in this tale, you have Sarah Essen, who was in Batman Year One. She's in here, and she's like, having like conversations with Gordon and stuff like that, And then you have as the story goes on, it's told in two different chapters. You have part one, the Dark Angel, then you have part two, the Descent. But like there's also like towards the end, you know what I'm saying, after Jean Paul actually eventually creates the new bat suit. I remember at the time I thought it was so cool, you know. It looks cool, you know what I'm saying, but when you get close up, it looks like it didn't really look that hot, you know. But once he does that, he goes on into Gotham City and he's like swinging around, like gliding and stuff. He's shooting like his grapple and stuff. And it looks cool. It's a fun scene, you know what I'm saying? Like towards the end of the comic, you know what I'm saying? He's like swinging around Gotham City and shooting, you know what I'm saying? His grapple and stuff and like gliding and stuff, you know what I'm saying? So Bane eventually leads him to like a final battle between the two with like a billboard saying, come now to Batman now, like come to me now, Batman, you know? Then they eventually meet and have like a brutal battle that gets very gruesome. And like Bane's mask is even tore off, you know what I'm saying? Kind of halfway, so you can see like his mouth and nose and stuff. Robin even shows up in that scene too, you know. Tim Drake, you know, he also even shows up, you know. But yeah, I thought this was at the time when I read it, I thought it was cool and good, and it was very hot at the time. I remember picking this up because back when I was reading comic books, I mostly read, you know, like the Spider-Mans, you know. That's who I mostly read. But I was reading Batman comic books too, though. He kind of ran with Spider-Man. Now, he's still my favorite hero, Batman. And Spider-Man was my number 2. But that's who I mostly read was Spider-Man. I didn't really read that many Batmans, but I did read Batman. I was reading him too, you know. And this was very hard at the time. Plus, it was like a milestone, you know. Batman had just went through 500. This is the 500 issue, you know. And I remember like in that cover right there, see how it opens, it shows Azrael or Jean Paul Valley as the current Batman, but that new bat suit, that was so cool right there at the time. Ooh, I remember thinking that was so cool. Then you can see Bane holding like Robin up right here. So, I go into it more thorough with my book, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, this is my review for Batman issue 500. And I'm not going to spoil the ending about what happens, you know. And this is part of the Nightfall saga because, you know, that whole thing has been collected into a complete story, which consists of 3 books. I think Nightfall, then I think Night's Quest, then I think Night's End, I believe it is. Because I'm planning on going with those 2 eventually. I never read the whole Nightfall saga, so I'm still planning on actually reading that, you know what I'm saying? But I did read this one, and this actually kind of concluded what was going on with Bane, you know. Okay, so this is JBAT. And this is my review for Batman issue 500. And I recommend this, and I thought it was fun, you know, cool. I still miss Bruce Wayne as Batman, you know, but I thought it was cool. And this is J-Bat. Alright. Hey, what's up? This is J-Bat, and today I'm going to review Batman issue 500. And this was the Nightfall series, part of the Nightfall series. You know, Batman's back was broken by Bane, and it was Nightfall 19. And as you can see on the cover, this wasn't really like Bruce Wayne as Batman. I guess you can kind of look at it like that, but it really wasn't, you know. And I had this for over 20 years. I had got this when it originally came out, and I was back in my comic book reading heyday, you know. But it had like a flap cover, and then it opens up into like the new bat suit that they had at the time, which I thought was cool at the time, you know. Then you also can see like Bane holding Robin over here, you know. As you can see, like he's holding like Robin, and Robin in here was Tim Drake, you know, because Dick Grayson, of course, was Nightwing at the time, and Jason Todd was supposedly dead, you know. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and give like a quick look at Batman issue 500, and I can remember this being very hot at the time, you know, very hard. I even picked it up myself, you know what I'm saying, because they just had, like, you know what I'm saying, Superman. Yeah, at the time, Superman himself was actually even kind of killed around the time by Doomsday, and Superman, the death of Superman, you know, and I was like a little before this was kind of like released. So Batman also had got his, and you know, except he didn't die, you know, he just got his back broke by Bane, you know, well, Bruce Wayne got his back broken by Bane. Now, the artwork for this was, the writer was Doug Munich, and the colorist was Adrian Roy, and the letterer was Ken Brusnak. And then you had the assistant editor, which was Jordan B. and Gorfley Canal. Then you had the editor, which was Dennis O'Neil, and you know he did the comic adaptations of the films, you know. Then you have like the various other peoples, you know, like I said, the writer was Doug Monich, Jim Aparo, and Terry Austin, and Mike Manley. Okay, so yeah, this is Batman issue 500, the Nightfall part, and this is part of the Nightfall, you know, series or whatever, Nightfall 19. Okay. And clearly you can see mine is the original, very original version from 1993, because they even had Mortal Kombat in here when the first Mortal Kombat game was came to video game systems. See it? As I can tell, this was way back in the early 90s, and it also had this like Batman card thing in it too, you know, like postcard thing. And this was like the comic book itself, you know. It opens with Bang holding like Batman, as you can see right here. I think at the time this also came with a poster, if I'm not mistaken, you know. And this was Gene Pauley, who was Batman for that moment, you know, because Bruce Wayne was injured by Bane. He couldn't be Batman at the time, so he had this new guy who was formerly Azrael as the new Batman, you know. And that Robin is the Tim Drake Robin. Yeah, this is that guy. I remember getting this back 20 years, you know, 20 years ago, you know, like back in the early 90s when I was reading comics a lot, you know. So these are just some of the images in here, you know. Very cool looking, you know. And him and Bane have like a bloody battle towards the end, you know. And that was the new look of the Batman suit, you see. And as you can see, these are some of like the gruesome images, you know, like with Bane getting like blooded up by Batman. Because this new Batman was like very aggressive, you know. He was like very violent and rough, you know, on his enemies. In the end, Batman issue 500, Nightfall 19. It's a great read, you know. I really enjoyed it, you know. And at the time, it was very hot. I remember picking this up from my local like comic book store, you know, because I was I think at my peak of reading comic books at the time, you know, when I originally had picked this up over 20 years ago. The Batman, because I even remember liking Gene Paul's new bat suit, you know. I thought it was cool at the time. So this is JBAT, and this is Batman issue 500.